Hey, Buy Then Build. It is Walker Deibel. I'm here today with Casey Allen, acquisition entrepreneur extraordinaire, who bought a business, and we've got a little bit of a surprise for people that watch this a little bit. So let's go ahead and hear his story in terms of why he decided to leave corporate America, buy a business, what his journey was like, and then the plot twist. We'll get into. Casey, how are you doing?
Hey, nice to see you again.
You too, my friend. So where on earth did you get this crazy idea to buy a company? Like give me the sort of origin story of this idea. What year was it? And what were the sort of steps you took in order to find and buy a business?
Yeah. So it all started with this book I picked up out of the library. I don't know. Let me see if I can. Oh, you've got a copy.
You
There
rented Buy Then Build from the library?
it
Did you really?
is. No, you know what? No, it was I don't know where I picked it up,
It was
but
an Amazon purchase, man. Let me
it
just
must have
help you
been.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But legitimately,
Yeah.
no smoke. I picked up the book, I read it cover to cover, and yeah, it definitely inspired me. It definitely kicked me from kind of the space I was in into, really looking in earnest. And so that was 2019,
Yeah.
the beginning in 2019. And
And
then
mhm.
and then found a business for sale late 2019, and the broker just happened to be Walker Deibel.
Yeah,
So
it was amazing. It was great.
it was kismet. Um, and yeah, and so found an awesome e-commerce business that I still own today, called Barista Warrior. And after some trial and tribulation, ultimately acquired it in mid 2020.
Yeah, so Barista Warrior, wonderful brand. We'll get into it in a minute, but there's a big range, okay, of people who go out to acquire businesses, and some of them take a more institutional approach, okay? You aren't quite that far, but you sort of lean that direction, right? Like in other words, you didn't come at this like private equity, but like you did have a thesis,
Yeah.
right? And I'm curious, do you remember what your thesis was, and how did Barista Warrior line up with that thesis?
Yeah. So definitely. And I tried to approach this acquisition and others with the kind of preparedness that private equity comes to deals with, and how they go to market and how they look for deals. And I've also read a lot on and spent a lot of time in that industry. So um, yeah, the thesis behind, and I've started businesses and I've gone from 0 to 1 a few times, had mixed success, some with other exits, some just I kind of ended up either selling for small amounts or whatever, but also kind of kept my corporate career and worked at startups. And so um, I always knew that going from 0 to 1 is by far the hardest.
It's so
Finding
hard.
any
Yeah.
customer to buy your widget is one of the hardest things in the world, and what a lot of people discount with great ideas, right? There is no field of dreams. So the thesis with finding an e-commerce and an FBA business specifically was that Amazon is the default product search engine for the world. And so they bring the audience to you. You just have to show up well and present your product and just optimize for delivery.
Awesome. Um, so let's go into the I'm actually a little foggy, Casey. Like I remember it was a very popular listing. There was a bunch of offers at hand. Like tell the story from your experience. Like do you remember how that went down? I mean, was there heavy negotiations at the beginning, or how did that go?
Yeah, I remember, I do remember you guys had multiple offers. I also remember in 2019, like FBA was not necessarily, and e-commerce in general was not, a
The
hot.
aggregators hadn't come in yet. There wasn't like
No,
$14 billion swooping in yet. They were still
it
like
was
sort of getting the
non-existent.
idea. Yeah.
And lenders were like, "Oh, you want to buy a digital businesses? Like that
Yeah,
doesn't make sense to us." And so
that's right.
there wasn't like I feel like we definitely synced up with the buyer pretty well and like aligning interests and
Definitely.
numbers. And yeah, the hard part, at least, 2019, early 2020 was just getting funding, kind of lined up to finish the deal. And then COVID hit, and that kind of threw the capital markets into, tailspin and froze everything, and, put everybody in lockdown. So, so it took a lot longer to close than I would say a typical acquisition,
So
especially at that size.
this is what I'm remembering. Like Casey, like I remember like we got under LOI, right? And like you went through diligence very quickly. Like you were organized, it was like checklists, like all the rest of it. You crushed that part. And then we had lenders that were lending in the space, right? And then what happened was COVID hit in like March of 2020. Is that right? COVID-19. Yeah, it was like February, January, February, somewhere in there. And like COVID was spreading, and all of a sudden all the lenders closed up,
Yeah.
right? And so you were ready to close, and the seller was ready to sell, and all of a sudden the bank was like, hold on, we're not doing this. And I think in my memory, they just burned like 60 days, right? I mean, it was a while. There was a log there.
Yeah.
And a lug. And it's one of these where where's my spell check when I need it? Lug. But anyway, so what happened was during that time frame, Barista Warrior sales started tracking up.
Yeah.
Remember? Like kind of and the seller was like traveling, like backpacking through the Amazon or whatever. And all of a sudden started, there was kind of a material increase in sales happening, and he all of a sudden was getting a change of heart, right? Yeah, he was like, well, maybe I don't want to sell. I mean, he obviously he had no debt of any kind, and so it was just like making money walking around the Amazon, like literally in the Amazon forest, or whatever. Like he was in the rainforest somewhere, and like just making all this money. And so I think he all of a sudden was like, I'm not sure. And I remember being like, okay, well, what would need to be true? Like I remember I was standing by my pool with him on the phone. And I was like, what would need to be true? And like it just came back to purchase price. And I was like, right, got it. And there was a material change, and I came to you, and I thought you were going to tell me to, pound sand, but you were like, yeah, I know. I knew this was going to happen. Like I've been pushing the bank so hard to get them to close. So you kind of had to chase it at the end there in order to get it done, right? Now,
Yeah.
I want to drill into that part, because a lot of first-time buyers really get hung up on like purchase price and like, am I overpaying? And like, did you feel like you overpaid? Like what was going on in your mind at that point? Like how much was emotional? How much was okay? Like walk me through how to think about that moment.
Yeah. So, and the way we structured it, we essentially just put that premium that, and I understand his position, kind of being on the other side of the table, like I would ask for the same.
Yeah.
And so we essentially just put that premium and pegged it on future performance, and just said, okay, if it continues how it's continued the last 3 months, in this time we were kind of going back and forth.
Got it.
Then sure, we can mutually agree that there is additional value there, that, price value that you can get paid out. And so, in the end, so that's what we did. We agreed to it, and in the end,
earn out. Okay.
it worked out. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah,
it worked out for him.
Yep.
What do you remember what the payment terms of that was?
We had pegged it to, I think it was there were like kind of two variables. One was sales, like just total sales, and the other was
But I mean, what was the payment? Like, did you pay him out over the next 90 days, or was it over 2 years? Or like, I'm just curious how that went down.
I see.
Did
It was a
10-year
variable.
earnout? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a variable earnout payment that had a balloon at 5.
Okay.
Sales accelerated so much, he got paid out within like 5 months.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's happy. You're feeling great.
Yeah,
right?
I assume he's happy. He got some very big checks. So
Yeah. Right. Okay. So just so everyone's aware, I mean, just to peg this, the business is doing currently about $1 million in revenue.
correct.
And I feel like it was doing less than that then, but not like materially smaller, right? It was about $1 million business.
Correct. Yeah.
And so okay, so all that being said, so now you own this business, right?
Mhm.
And I'm curious, you had this whole thesis of how it was going to go. And putting a thesis together is kind of academic, but then like when you're actually doing it, it's like reality and experience. Like there was some kind of gap there, right? Like it's every forecast is wrong. It's just sort of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
wrong which way. What were
yeah.
the sort of like gaps between like the thesis you had and or was it spot on? Like what were the benefits? What were the hits? What were the misses in terms of the thesis and practice?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, so part of the thesis was, so we did like a full kind of rebrand and product refresh. We did a whole new brand identity, repackaging, new websites, because part of the plan was to, start to pivot it off of Amazon to, diversify revenue a bit. Um, and so, we underwent all of that, and that took a little bit of time to just kind of iron out and do all that other stuff, like get it all done correctly. And so, um, so it went well. The gap really was, and we ended up with beautiful products and beautiful branding and a beautiful website. The gap was really just, I came from the software world and building and kind of designing and thinking about how to sell digital software and software as a service. And so the gap really was just my skill set and me having to like ramp up in terms of, having to do learn every job that I then, now put myself in, having acquired the business. Like that was a lot harder than I had initially thought it would be, just that skill set gap was a challenge for me,
And
and ultimately kind of decreased my overall happiness and enjoyment of,
well, it led to you acquiring another business outside.
yes.
What'd you
Yeah.
buy?
Yeah. So I bought an educational content business
Yep.
that, kind of going back to my original thesis around, the lessons learned from starting businesses. The hardest problem is finding an audience to sell your thing to. And so the educational content business had a huge audience that was, just painfully under monetized. And so, in my opinion, and so with that business, I thought I could acquire it and pivot it, develop a SaaS or SaaS something related service, to that audience, which we did and is going very well right now. And so, um,
And is
yeah,
this different from your startup?
yes. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So two acquisitions and a startup going on right now.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so uh okay, you talked about attracting customers. Does Barista Warrior have that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we still do. We still rank very well on, all of the kind of measurements um, that Amazon puts forward around, page rank and everything we do there.
How many
So yeah, I
how many
mean, we
hours a
still do
week?
very well on Amazon.
How many hours a week are you working right now?
In
On,
total,
no, on
in
Barista Warrior.
yeah, on Barista, honestly, like it's got to be less than three, at this point.
Yeah.
The challenge is like the mental burden of knowing I'm not doing, I could be doing something there, but I'm not. So I'm
Yep.
choosing to do something over is, like that stresses me out more than anything. The
One of the
reality workload, not as much.
Yeah, one of the things I keep trying to, drill into the minds of members of Acquisition Lab is like, look, it's become really sexy to say things like I bought 12 businesses this year. And
Mm,
it's like whenever I hear that, it gives me like it's not okay. You're just like stacking risk, right?
no,
Right? And it's like you either need to be acquiring all in one vertical or like in one core competency,
yep.
right? But none of this like I'm buying everything around like all on, loans because that's just it ends up being what you're talking about right now, like the stress of sort of being pulled in different directions and being able to like leverage your time better in other businesses, right? Than the one
Yeah,
that you've got now.
there's so much, yeah, there's so much lost in context switching that it's
Yeah,
painful.
yeah. So, what is the big plot twist?
Barista Warriors for sale.
We're selling it. We're selling
We're
it.
coming full circle.
Yeah. It's probably going to go to market on the 14th of May, 2024. So let's get into it. What are the products that Barista Warrior sells?
Yeah, so it sells at home coffee brewing equipment. So we do, and our typical customers are, people who are starting to get into being more thoughtful about like brewing better coffee. So they're ditching the coffee maker and they're, doing slow pour over coffee typically. So we sell traditional beehive kettles,
Which
and
is an
then
amazing product. I've had one for 5 years.
yeah,
This that you're
yeah.
holding up is an amazing product. I recently got one, and it's like all rubber all around, and it fits. I mean, it's very well designed. Continue. Sorry.
Yes. And these, yeah, we sell the reusable filters, which are awesome. So if you do pour over, if you've done pour over at home, like traditionally it's done with paper filters. You probably throw thousands. If people who make pour overs at home, they end up throwing like 30,000 away a year, or in a lifetime. And so, keeping all of that out of the dump is awesome. And then we high grade craft. And then we also have French presses, and then kind of an additional line of filters. So
And so, how many new products did you launch? Like when you bought the company, it was doing the kettles,
yep.
and it had just launched the French press. I feel like so
Correct.
the pour over was all you, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we did the pour over, and the pour over comes with kind of a scoop. So, we designed that out. And then, I guess kind of going all the way back, one of the lessons I learned would have been, that I should have done earlier in kind of the acquisition cycle, is launching new product faster. Instead of, I should have reordered kind of my thesis. We spent too much time kind of in the upfront, redesigning the business and the business identity. And so, yeah. So we have a bunch of other products ready to launch. We just, because I don't want to screw it up, because I'm doing these other things, they're sitting on the back burner, ready to
So
go.
what are the growth opportunities of Barista Warrior right now?
Yeah, I would say number one is certainly just expanding the product catalog. We've done a lot of surveying of our current customers. There's definitely base demand for specific products that are just, comparable to the products we already have, in the coffee niche. So, not getting crazy with it, but just staying within the coffee vertical and just blowing it out,
Yeah. And so and you said you've got new products ready to go?
Yes, so we've got a handful of new products, all designed out. So we've worked to source all the manufacturer or all the suppliers. We've done all the design changes where necessary, and then we've designed out the packaging and kind of built the plan for how to launch it. So, yeah.
Awesome. So you've got products ready to go. So you've got a low workload. Like, I mean, Casey, just to land it, like, why on earth are you selling this business, right? I mean, you're working 3 hours a week, you're making $1 million a year revenue, and why would we say, you've got awesome, beautiful products with a great brand on the biggest store that's ever existed in the history of mankind. Why on earth are you selling it?
Yeah. So the elephant in the room are those other two businesses that that are starting to just take up an insane amount of my time. They're both in a lot of ways startups. So, and as anybody who's done a startup before, it takes all of your time and more to just get it off the ground. And so that's kind of the stage that they're at. and the reason I'm choosing those over this is because, you know, those I can leverage my skill set that I've developed over the last like 2 decades in corporate America and starting other businesses in those two businesses. And so I just get a higher return on my time.
Yeah.
And
Like,
so it's those I'm just like spending an insane amount of time on. And then, you know, it'll help remove the mental burden of me knowing I have this, you know, these awesome products that I could be doing a lot with, but I'm not, which is, you know, it hurts me mentally.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, listen, Barista Warrior is a great asset. It's a great business. It's been around how many years, Casey? 10 plus?
Yeah, almost. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
been around
almost
for a decade.
nine this year. Yeah.
Yeah, at home, high quality coffee making equipment. Listen, if you're interested in learning more about the business and you know the suppliers and the growth opportunities and you know the transition period and all the rest of it, go to quietlight.com on May 14th, on around May 14th, 2024. And we'll go from there. And Casey, I mean, any last thoughts that you might want to introduce to somebody who's considering buying Barista Warrior from you?
I mean, it's honestly, it's been a really fun business to run over the past few years. I mean, who doesn't love coffee? And it's a great excuse to, you know,
I mean, the industry's huge. Like it's like I'm sorry to interrupt. Like it's like 87% of people like drink multiple cups of coffee every day. It's amazing.
and it's like truly recession proof. And you know, yeah, it's been an amazing business to run. Just getting to see kind of behind the curtain on kind of the e-commerce side, which I've never really done before. And so that's been fun. And yeah, it's coffee. You can't say anything bad about it.
That's amazing. Well, Casey, listen, it's you know, in life, you know, I'm kind of going through the same thing myself, and I'm doing less and less brokering as I'm focusing on my businesses. And I actually wasn't going to take on any at this time, but when you reached out, just so you know, I was like, well, how cool would it be to go like full cycle with someone with such a good brand, right, and get it off to the next buyer. So I'm thankful to be able to go through this whole cycle with you, and I look forward to helping you move on to the next step. Thanks, man.
So, appreciate it. And it's good seeing you again. Good reconnecting.